campus, and we want to give you some tools that you can work with. So welcome to our assembly today, and I want to let you know that we have a way for you to send in your questions. We are going to be sending out answers to these questions later on after the program. So send your questions to wellness@swau.edu through the program today is fine, or even this afternoon. Keep sending those questions, and then we will send answers out. These questions will be anonymous, by the way, so send those questions to us. I would like to especially thank our CASA director, Mrs. Renata Ocampo, for doing all the hard work in putting this assembly together. Thank you, Renata. And now I would like to introduce our panelists that we have with us today. On the far side is nutritionist Noreen Sofranac. Then we have Dr. Mark Aldrich. He's not a stranger to our campus. Dr. Lynette Franson, the same. And on this side, we have Ms. Lakeisha Foster from our nursing department. So thank you all for being with us. We look forward to what you have to say today.
We also have with us two outstanding students from the psychology club, and they are Eva Wong and Michaela Walker. Stand up, come on, so I can see you. They will be participating as well, so we're happy that they said yes and that they wanted to come and support all of us, so thank you. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is to take a deep, deep breath and let it out. Take one more and let it out. Now we all know that you have just a couple more days before this is all over, and this is the crucial time when you have a surge of emotions happening. We know that all of you have challenges, you all have responsibilities, priorities, and everything sort of is coming to a close, right? We want to validate those feelings. We want to validate how you're feeling because it's completely normal. And we also want you to know that you're not alone. So we're going to do an activity throughout this presentation. I'm going to need you to bring out your telephones. So take out your phones, all of you. And the first thing we want to do is we want you to tell us how you are feeling today. Put the code, go to menti.com, put that code, and tell us with 3 different words how you're feeling today. Ready, set, go. I didn't, it's on the screen. Yeah, the screen is 83. Oh, so go to menti.com. And then the code is 838914. Okay. The more you repeat a word, the more it gets bigger. So come on. All right, y'all. I see what's going on. The code is 838914. Okay, once it stops, I know that all of you did it, because you can only do it once, so. Okay, about 20 more seconds. We're going to leave it up while we talk about the next thing. Just a minute.
wasn't officially becoming old. I don't know.
Did you need the code again? Oh.
Oh gosh.
All right. There is a recurring theme. You can see that you're not the only one having these feelings. So we want to validate you. And today's assembly is specifically about two topics. We will be talking about anxiety, and we will be talking about depression today. Caleb, can you go back to the presentation?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Assembly. My name is Eva Wong. I am a psychology major with emphasis in education. And this is Michaela. She's a psychology major as well with an emphasis in cage management. And we're going to start talking about depression in this section. So let's get started.
All right, so the first thing we are going to dive into is depression. I'm sure most of y'all have a general idea of what depression is, or maybe have even experienced it yourselves. But what is it really? Today we want to hit on clinical depression and explain some signs and symptoms to be aware of to help you guys deal with them. So the textbook definition tells us depression is a mental health disorder characterized by persistently depressed moods or loss of interest in activities, causing significant impairment in daily life.
Okay, so there's two. Hello? Okay. So there's two factors that are associated with mental illnesses. And the first one is length of time, and the second one is if it obstructs your everyday life. So with depression, the length of time, it says seek help if it has been more than 2 weeks. So that is your red flag if you have any depressive feelings. That is the big factor, 2 weeks or more. And if you see that it's causing problems in your everyday life, it's causing problems in your school life, in your work life, your relationships, where you just do not feel like getting up every day. It's just a very hard feelings of you can't keep on going, then that is a big factor as well. And we want to share with you guys some data pertaining depression. And maybe it's not something you have personally experienced, but once you are informed and you see it in somebody else that's right next to you, you're able to help them, right? With our data, it says that 1 in 5 college students have depression. That's pretty big. And on the average, the first signs of depression appear during late teens to mid-20s. And during that time, there's so many changes, right? Going from high school or the comfort of your zone where you have known people for so long to a whole different change of location, whole change of who you are. So that can take a toll on many people, as well as breakups. So during this time, it's a big moments or events that can cause somebody to have depressive feelings as well. And we're going to go over some symptoms of depression to inform you guys of what to look out for.
So you guys just heard the definition of depression, and you even heard some data that hopefully put into perspective for y'all how common this is and how big of a deal it is. So here are some symptoms we want you guys to be aware of that we thought were pretty common and important to point out. For example, mood. So if you're a happy person and then you're just the complete opposite of that now, something's going on and something's wrong. If your sleep's affected by it, so maybe you get your full 8 hours of sleep, but you're still tired to where you sleep all day, you skip events, or maybe you're not getting sleep at all. You're having a hard time falling asleep, staying up all night. That's a big sign too. This can lead to your whole body being affected, so you're just really fatigued, walking around campus like a zombie, just really tired and worn out. Your behavior, maybe you cry out of nowhere for no reason, like you just cry when you're not a crier, or maybe you get super agitated or irritated. Those are some signs. Cognitive, you can't focus in class when the teacher's explaining things, or when you're reviewing your notes, you're having to reread things because you're just not comprehending like what you're reading as fast as you used to. And then also weight, excessive weight gain or weight loss is a big sign something's going on.
Okay, so those are just symptoms and just some information about depression that we want to share with you guys to be aware of everything.
So the reason that we're here as a panel is to dig a little deeper into, if you notice that you're experiencing signs and symptoms of depression, what can you do about it? One of the first things that I ask people when they come to me and they tell me that I'm feeling depressed is that I ask them, when was the last time you had a physical with your doctor? We know that the physical and the emotional are closely tied to each other. So sometimes we have physical ailments because there's something going on psychologically, and sometimes we have psychological symptoms because sometimes something is going on physically. So I always say, when's the last time you've been to your doctor? When did you have a blood test? How is your health? How are you treating yourself? Let some of my colleagues continue.
So, I don't know if I'm on or off, or can I switch with you until I figure out how to turn this on? Okay. So one of the big deals about depression is that it's easy to miss it. You're a student, of course we're tired, so I'm a student too, right? So fatigue, that sounds like my everyday life. Difficulty with sleeping, well, that's because I'm doing exams in my head while I sleep, right? I'm sure some of you can relate to that. It's exhausting being a student. The thing of it is that many people are depressed and they have no clue. And there is help. There are ways to combat depression. Sometimes it could be something as simple as talk therapy, but in other cases it could require things like medication. And your general practitioner or a psychiatrist can help with something like that. The first step, though, is to kind of like what you were saying, figure out, is this what I'm dealing with? Do I really have depression, or is it just that I'm tired of school? Is it senioritis, or do I have a problem? Because depression unattended can eventually lead to real significant disability. It is the leading cause of disability in the entire world. So it really brings home how significant this is. And then at the very far end of it, depression can lead to suicide. In the United States, suicide is one of the major health indicators, and it's among 3 that are actually worsening in the US. The other one is like adolescent depression, and so many of you are actually probably still in adolescence. Suicide is worsening in the US, so the risk for you is high. So if you see these symptoms in yourself or someone else, take it seriously. And I'll stop talking in just 1 second. I want to give a phone number that could help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. Available 24 hours a day, and it might help you or someone else you love.
Okay. Shall I move to nutrition? So you think I'm going to talk about phytochemicals and flavonoids and all those wonderful things in the rainbow vegetables and fruits and vegetables. You're going to say, so what's so new about that, right? Well, I'm not. We're going to hit the biggest abusers of the body that very much have a lot to do with feeling anxiety and depression. And a lot of that is just when you are feeling that, we know the emotions that are behind that. And I'm going to mention 2 emotions that I deal with in my classes with weight control and diabetes, is loneliness and boredom. Who would have thought that those would be the stressors at the top? Loneliness, when I have people around me all the time and I have roommates. Are you kidding? I can't be lonely. How about boredom? How can I be bored when I've got a list of 1,000,000 things I need to accomplish? They can't exist. So loneliness can happen in a room full of people, and boredom can happen because you've lost connection with things that have heart value to you. So this causes an instability in the lifestyle, and the 3 things that occur most when people are beginning to feel a little overwhelmed are, number 1, a lot of erratic eating, meal skipping, roller coaster eating, going several hours without eating, and then perhaps binging for an hour on snacks or having a really huge meal. You'll see the results of that a lot of times in gut issues. So a lot of times the breakfast meal is skipped. And we know that the morning meal is what sets the body in motion. It sets the rhythm for the day. If your GI tract is in a rhythm from eating with the contractions going on, your heart rate is in better rhythm, and that rhythm has a lot to do with our equilibrium of our hormones. So eating in the morning is important. Should it be milk and cereal? No, not really. Milk and cereal don't do much for you. That means you're going to have to make up the nutrition in the other meals of the day. But are you? So we're actually seeing a lot of college-age people a little deficient in vitamins, bordering on malnutrition in many respects, and that malnutrition upsets hormone levels so that you do have more anxiety and depression. And what do you turn to? Oh, a quick beverage to get you through the day, a little more caffeine, push just to get you through, and we just set everything in even more volatile motion. Number 2, the snacks and desserts, which I have talked about, refined carbs. A lot of fast food eating does affect the blood sugars, and blood sugars are very connected to your hormone balance. And so what we're really seeing is that cognitively, when the hormones are out of balance because of physically how you are eating or not eating, you're going to experience some anxiety. It's just going to be aggravated. You're going to just feel off-centered. You might find yourself wanting to take a nap in certain times of the day that are not usual. You have energy one moment and you feel tired the next. Sugar cravings are hitting you hard. These are all indicators that the body can't find equilibrium. And so what's that going to lead to is the body running down, and at the far end of the spectrum, you have autoimmune disorders, but you also but preliminary to all that, you'd get a lot of chronic inflammation through the body. That chronic inflammation may begin in the gut with the way you're eating, your lifestyle, your sleep patterns, and the lack of predictability. The body loves routine. It loves to eat at the same time every day, and I bet you that's a pretty hard thing for you to do. Especially many of you don't have your own kitchen. You're waiting for meals to be ready for the cafeteria or whatever, so those present challenges to you. So the last one then is speed eating. So when you do finally get a chance to eat, you're going to speed through that meal because you have things to do, places to go. And you're trying to get through the meal as quickly as possible. Or you're talking with your mouth full because, you're seeing friends, it's going to be the only time you see them for the whole week. And so you're speed eating, and food is only being partially digested because it's being pushed down. The tongue has a very powerful way of pushing foods down the throat before it's ready to go because you've trained it that way. So what happens in speed eating is we have partially digested food that's arriving in the stomach. The stomach is not really able to fully digest the food before another load is coming down the throat. So 2 things can happen. It can be pushed down further so that the load hits the kidneys, and now we don't have good filtration because the load is heavy on the kidneys, or that food can be backed up into the esophagus from that little flap that a lot of you in biology people know what the name is. So that would cause the reflux. So let's say you have occasional reflux. That is a sign right now. Do something about that. Slow your eating down. Don't drink a lot of beverages with your eating, but don't allow that to become chronic because there's really no cure for reflux disorder. It can only be managed after that. We call that GERD. Okay, so that is a disorder that happens over a long period of time. It becomes a precursor for chronic diseases. That can inflame the entire intestinal tract. You can begin to have more bloating, constipation, just problems with abdominal discomfort. And so that happens with the speed of eating. And then the saliva and juices just don't flow as readily when you're in a hurry and when you're under stress. So that's for starters. And we didn't talk about phytochemicals, did we? So we'll save that one.
Well, let me talk a little bit about the different ways that this can occur. You can get it biologically. You can be predisposed to it by the genetics of your family. You can get it environmentally because of what you're around. And you can get it from faulty thinking. I'm losing my voice. My class will be happy. But you can think yourself into depression by thinking about bad things all the time. And one of the things that you can do to help yourself is always try to think more positively about things. The glass is half full instead of half empty.
So we're back to your turn. Okay? We are going to put another question up for you to use your phones again with the same menti.com. And we want to know, because we're talking about depression and anxiety, the second question we'll ask you when it pops up, what makes you feel the most anxious? For me, is heights. If I'm anything above, this is a little bit, for me, I can handle this, but that's it. I can't go beyond this. So tell us what makes you the most anxious. I'll give you about a minute. So go fast. Oh, am I making you anxious? No. Uh-huh. Thanos, I dig it. I dig that one. Yep. That one's deep. Hmm. Thirty more seconds. Ten seconds. Thanks, Caleb.
All right, so as you guys just saw from that little survey, there's a lot more people that commented on things that made them anxious than depression. Why? Anxiety is the #1 mental health illness, and not just college students, but everyone. So this is the #1 problem people deal with. That's how common it is. So if you don't know what anxiety is, or maybe you haven't experienced it severely, just imagine constantly worrying about everything. Everything you do in your everyday life, like what are you gonna do, who's gonna be there, where are you gonna go, just all these factors to what you do, that's what people with anxiety have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So the definition of anxiety is a feeling of tension, anxious feelings, worried thoughts, and can involve physical changes like high blood pressure. That's pretty general, right? We've all felt that, like maybe before taking a test or going on a first date. Okay, that's pretty normal. Now the next definition says, it is a normal feeling that we may feel in certain situations, but too much anxiety and anxious feelings where it obstructs your everyday life is when it becomes more serious. Seek help if feelings continue up to 6 months or more. This is when it becomes an illness, and this is when you should seek help.
So we did a quick survey with everybody. You could put feelings that make you anxious. But we also asked some students, we did like a quick survey with some alumni as well. And the top 3 responses were speaking in front of public, or maybe like in classrooms when you have to present. Financial worries, and somebody said the financial department at Southwestern. The other one said during, before, or after tests. And our alumni, their top response was looking for a job right after graduation. So those are big events that can cause us high anxious feelings, and they're part of our everyday life, so we all feel at some point. But we want to share with you guys also how important data is and how serious anxiety is in college students.
So maybe all this information just seems like old news to you, repetitive, you've already heard about this before. Well, here's some data to consider. Mental health problems are prevalent in college students, with anxiety and mood disorders being the most common. Anxiety is the top presenting concern among college students, followed by depression and relationship problems. So right away, anxiety and depression is even higher than relationship problems. And I haven't seen more relationship problems than I have in college. So if anxiety has even more than relationship problems, that's a lot, guys. That shows how big of a deal it is.
So another one of our data points says, according to the World Health Organization, 1 in 13 globally suffer from anxiety. So we are focusing in college, but it also shows to prove that even outside of college, there is moments where everybody does feel anxious or has any type of anxiety disorders. And it says anxiety disorders are the most prevalent psychiatric problems among college students. So there's a big difference between feelings of anxiousness and anxiety disorders, because feelings of anxiousness we feel in our everyday life. Everyone had a chance to say moments where they also feel anxious in college, failing, grades, etc. But there are big differences between anxious feelings and anxiety disorders. And we're going to go through 4 anxiety disorders that are prevalent in college students.
All right, so with anxiety, there's a lot of different types of anxiety, and you don't have to have all of these to be diagnosed. But we chose some of the most popular ones to point out real quick. The first one's generalized anxiety disorder. This is just where you worry about everything. And then also social anxiety disorder. It's described as a marked fear or anxiety about one or more social situation in which the individual is exposed to possible scrutiny by others. The last part says scrutiny by others because people with this disorder are constantly worried about what people are thinking about them, and they think everyone's watching and judging them. A good example of this is going to the cafeteria. This person maybe doesn't want to eat alone, or if they do, they feel like everyone's watching them, talking about them, pointing it out. This could even be in a group full of people. Point is, they think people are criticizing them. So instead of just going through all of that, they just skip the caf and don't eat to avoid that situation.
Another anxiety disorder is panic disorder. So panic disorders is kind of like an intense fear or intense discomfort, and people with anxiety disorders have a lot of panic attacks, and it may be, it has specific triggers. Sometimes maybe they're in a restaurant and something triggers a panic attack. And OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder, and it is called for when obsession or compulsions for excessive or unreasonable causes. So this may be a person that everything has to be clean, or they have to, maybe there's like specific things they have to touch as many times, and they can't function without doing those actions. But anxiety disorders is something big, and anxiety in general is something really important that we want to share with you guys. And knowledge is power, and with this assembly, we want to bring more awareness to depression and anxiety and inform you guys of all of the signs and symptoms and know when to seek help.
I really like how the ladies described the differences. They did a wonderful job, right? The differences between knowing if your anxiety is normal or if it's something that is abnormal, because a lot of times I think people go to see a counselor or want to talk with someone because they're like, I'm anxious and I shouldn't feel anxious. The truth is that anxiety is a normal part of life, and it plays an important role. When you have anxiety about a test, it typically motivates you to study more. If you have anxiety about heights, you'll probably tend to stand a little farther back. If we didn't have that anxiety, what would be there to keep us from, well, I'm just going to walk off the cliff. So anxiety plays an important role, but sometimes it becomes so intense, so overwhelming that it begins to start interfering with our ability to interact with people, with our ability to do our schoolwork, with our ability to work, because we can feel the pressure in our chest, in our shoulders. It becomes almost numbing and immobilizing. It's like being paralyzed. So one of the things I mentioned with depression, that the physical and the emotional are highly connected. When we take care of ourselves physically, it helps us emotionally. But our emotions are also important when dealing with anxiety and depression. I know one of the things that I've heard very often, people with depression and anxiety, they say, well, you know what? I told my friends what I'm going through, and they just told me to suck it up. That's probably one of the worst things you can do, because if someone comes and they say they're feeling this way, whether it seems like it's intense or not to you, to them it is. And so when we tell someone to just suck it up, or, oh, you know, well, just think positive and you'll be fine, we're basically invalidating or telling them how you feel isn't important. So it's very important that if someone comes to you and says, that's your friend, and says, hey, I feel depressed or I'm feeling anxiety, you don't have to have all the answers, But just let them know that, well, hey, why do you think you're having these problems? Be there for them, listen to them, let them know that you care. You don't have to have the answer or the solution to them. They just need to know that someone's willing to listen to them.
I think it's really powerful what you're saying. I want to piggyback off of you. Because the thing with depression, and I'll come to anxiety, is that it's not something the person can control on their own. And it's good for us to know that, and it's good for those who might be suffering to know that. Because we can think we can pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, we can think enough, we can be positive enough, we can eat the right foods. But when depression gets bad enough, there's no longer something you can do, and you need some pharmacological help. Usually medicine, a little bit of antidepressant can do the trick. Interestingly enough, the same kind of medications might be used to help with anxiety. There's a neurochemical element to both of these disorders that we haven't discussed, and I won't go into it here, but if you're ever in my class, we'll talk about it. That is not something that someone can change just with their own normal efforts. And it's really important to recognize that when we're talking to someone else, because it helps us to be more sensitive. So here's some other ways anxiety show up. Have you ever lost your hair, girls, or maybe guys? Isn't that the worst? And you're just like, man, my hair just keeps shedding. That could be anxiety. Have you ever gained when you're like, I stopped eating in the caf, I'm not even eating Twinkies, why am I gaining weight? That could be because of the anxiety. Or maybe just other things are happening, you can't think straight. You come to an exam and for all the life in you, you cannot seem to see the answers. You're not even too sure if you're even seeing the screen anymore. All of those can be manifestations of anxiety that can be difficult to overcome completely by yourself. So again, I'll reiterate about the importance of getting help and being okay with that. We stigmatize mental illnesses because we don't understand them, or because we think that, oh, everybody has them, we can just all get over it. And there's some things we can get over, but these are not always things we can get over. So the way that we talk about it, the way that we say, oh my goodness, I'm gonna die, okay, well maybe don't say that, right? Maybe think of other ways we can even change our way of approaching and thinking about our everyday feelings, because then it allows us a chance to see depression and anxiety for what they are and see the momentary stressors for what they are. And it helps us to be able to attack those a little bit more carefully and considerately. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, but who's thinking about going and eating a nutritious meal when you've got exams ahead of you? Or, oh, let's cut out the coffee, I won't buy any just before exams. And, thinking nourishment as part of your priority for preparing for exams. It's not really in our thinking, but what you could do is think about just a couple of things that you will put in motion that will help your body. It's nurturing the body mentally and physically in order to go into those pressures with greater clarity. So I would challenge you to think about a couple of physical things that you would do, and it might be eating more broccoli. It might be, okay, I'm going to step up my breakfast. I'm going to make sure I have a piece of fruit in the morning with my cereal, or I'm going to at least have a handful of nuts. Just be simple about it and put that into motion, and it does count.
I think maybe one thing we need to focus on here is how you can have Christ in this equation. I did a whole dissertation on this concept, and what we found is that prayer and regular attendance at church actually reduces your response, the negative response to stress. It doesn't make your stress go away, but it makes you better able to handle it. So I'd encourage you to pray, and pray without ceasing, and read your Bible every day. Excuse me.
So if you feel like you're dealing with depression or anxiety, seek help.
You're not alone.
Thank y'all.
So I mentioned when I started talking about anxiety and depression that one of the things that you should avoid saying is, oh, just think positive and you'll feel better. The reason I say this is because the way that we tend to say it to people is like, oh, there's an easy solution, there's an easy fix. However, the truth is that, as Dr. Aldridge mentioned, the way we think directly affects the way we feel and the way that we behave. And it's a very important part of overcoming depression and anxiety. And so there's a word that you may have heard called affirmations. Okay? Affirmations are positive words of encouragement that we tell ourselves. So this has to do with our self-talk and the things that we're saying to ourselves in our minds. Self-affirmations are very important because when we're talking about depression and anxiety, if you ask people what they're thinking, very often they're thinking, I can't do it, this is hopeless, I'm helpless, I'm such a failure. I had a young lady who, not from here, texted me the other day, and she was like, I did so horrible on a test. And this was like her final exam for finishing up vocational school. And I said, well, because it was pass-fail. I said, did you pass? And she's like, yes, I did, but I only got 82 out of 100. And she said, the teacher was very pleased with that, but I know I could have done better. And it ruined her entire day. And I said to her, I said, you are much more than a test. You are much more than a score. I said, yes, that's going to be in your paperwork. But I said, don't let your test determine how you feel about yourself. Don't let your test determine what others think about you. Show others that you are better than that. And she wrote back, she's like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. But we tend to have like this all or nothing thinking, this way that if something goes wrong, well then I must be a complete failure because this one thing that happened in my day went wrong. And that's not true. I mean, there's so much more to us than a test. Than if someone says that, oh, did you know that your shoes clash with your shirt? Or, you know, there's so much more to who you are as an individual. And God values you. And if God values you enough to give up his life for you, shouldn't you have value for yourself as well? Amen. So I hope that you will value yourself. Take the time to tell yourself, I am a child of God. I am a person who is worthy, who is valued, and the only one of my kind. I am unique, and I make this wonderful piece of the puzzle that's our world. So take time to say, you know what, I'm not going to let these negative thoughts take over my life. I'm going to remind myself how valuable I am and affirm myself.
Absolutely. Dr. Franson, would you say that part of affirmation could be also giving someone affection in a positive way, or praying with them, or having that human touch so that they know that they're not alone?
Oh, absolutely, because not only can we affirm ourselves, but we can affirm others around us. Now, I would definitely ask people first before you give them a hug, because there are some people who might not be into the hugging, touchy-feely kind of thing, but touch is very important, whether it's a pat on the shoulder or a fist bump or a hug. That's something we can do when, instead of looking for faults in others around us, we say, hey, that was a really good comment you made in class today. I really liked it. Looking for the positive things in others around us and encouraging and lifting up, building up others around us.
And the really great thing about that is the fact that if you give affirmation to others while you're doing that, you actually provide affirmation for yourself. It pays you back.
So, and just to add one last part to that, so some people, their love language is touch. So for some of us, touch is weird, but for others, just that human connection can be all, that says more to them than all the words in the world, because it gives them a chance to connect in a way that's meaningful for them. The other part I wanted to just add to that is, the more you tell yourself the positive, it becomes what your brain believes to be true. If you live out of the negative, it becomes neurobiologically, literally, your brain will create pathways that say the negative is true. But if you reverse it and you practice it, those old pathways will shrink, your body will get rid of it, and your brain will literally develop brand new pathways, and you'll start living out of the truth as opposed to the devil's lies.
Wonderful. Okay, we're back to your turn. Sorry, no more cell phones. But we want to show you what the value of affirmation is done, showing you a video. And by the way, after that, you will have a turn.
I don't mind where you come from, as long as you come to me. But I don't like illusions, I can't see them clearly. I don't care, no, I wouldn't dare to fix the twist in you. You've shown me eventually what you'll do. I don't mind, I don't care, as long as you're here. Go ahead, tell me you'll leave again. You'll just come back running, holding your scar out in hand. It's all the same, and I'll take you for who you are. If you take me for everything, do it all over again. It's all the same. Hours slide and days go by till you decide to come. However long you stay is all that I am. I don't mind, I don't care, as long as you're here. Go ahead, tell me you'll leave again. You'll just come back running, holding your scar out in hand. It's all the same, and I'll take you for who you are. If you take me for everything, do it all over again. It's always the same. Go ahead, say it, you're leaving. You'll just come back running, holding your scar out in hand. It's all the same, and I'll take you for who you are. If you take me for everything, do it all over again. It's all the same.
Is to do or experience what it is to have that positive affirmation. Can you hear me now? All right. In front of you, behind the hymnals, are some sheets of paper. If they're near you, I want you to grab them, stand up, and show it to everyone, and act on it. Ready? Go. Go. All right, I'm going to count to 10, and then I'm going to bring it back as a group in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We know we're at the end. We are having closing prayer by Dr. Russ, and right after, don't just walk away. We do have something for those of you that are stay behind. So stay behind for just a little bit.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for being the author of love, because love casts out all fear and all the others. Thank you for the good information you gave us. Fill us with your love. May we be your arms and feet to this world. Bless this campus as we near the end of this semester. Give us patient endurance. And even when it gets crazy, walk with us, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
And just so that you know we understand what you're going through, we have some cute summer beach ball stress balls for you to take with you. So